For distributors managing private fleets, the last mile is often the most complex and costly part of operations. Manual planning, incomplete data, and inconsistent adoption of technology continue to limit performance, even among experienced organizations. In today's discussions, Descartes will share how leading fleets are overcoming these barriers through a proven, data-driven approach, which includes the three pillars of routing success: optimizer, data accuracy, and people and process. We'll discuss how each contributes to measurable gains in efficiency, visibility, and customer service. The conversation will go beyond technology to explore the strategy behind this world-class route planning, execution, and continuous improvement. I'm Kevin Jones, Editorial Director at Fleet Owner, and with us today are Sergio Torres and Cyndi Brandt from Descartes. Cyndi, why don't you say hello, and then Sergio can introduce himself, and we'll get going.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. I'm the VP of Fleet Solutions, and I help run the go-to-market practice here at Descartes, as well as I get to be the last mile evangelist oftentimes.
Sergio.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. This is Sergio Torres, and I'm a Senior Vice President for Product Management. I've been with the company for more than 25 years, and under my responsibility, I have all the routing, mobile, and telematics solutions, and I've been in routing my entire life, so thank you for having me.
Well, you're the person we need to have here. We're recording this a couple of weeks before Christmas, so delivery schedules are on everybody's minds. For those of us on this side of the shipping rush, Sergio, routing remains that huge challenge we talked about. From your perspective, what makes routing so complex in today's last mile environment?
Well, I'm actually glad that you're actually bringing this up, but there is definitely something that people overlook all the time, and it's basically three major drivers that it comes to planning, executing, and obviously continuously improving your routes. And these are three things that we don't keep in mind, which are basically the tools that we use for optimization, the data that actually comes into those tools, into that technology, and as well, thinking of people and processes. And what makes it actually in our world, what makes it actually complex is definitely the relevance that we give to these three major pillars. So, I mean, I can discuss that more if you wish, Kevin.
Well, then why don't we start with the optimizer and Descartes' approach, and how is it different from traditional tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, the optimization, every optimizer is actually different, and what it makes it actually different at Descartes is our optimization basically focuses on being able to model real life situations, real life problems, where you have the ability to actually have flexibility when it comes to constraints. That's number one. The number two thing is that we approach optimization. The traditional optimization tools that you see in the market, they work pretty much in batch, like they actually take a bunch of data, a group of shipments, and then a group of vehicles, and then they come up with a solution. Well, what we do is incrementally, we actually resolve the problem. So as data is actually showing up and orders are dripping into your system, we want to have them as soon as possible. The other piece is that we actually also do it dynamically. So you can actually be planning today for tomorrow, today for the next day, today for many days in advance. But also you can do optimizations on the same day, which makes it dynamic. So as things are changing, even today for tomorrow, or even today for today, as things are changing, your optimization should be able to cope with the changes. Real-time information that is coming in from the driver, real-time exceptions, and real-time new orders that are coming in. For instance, additional pickups that you want to have and hand out to your driver, or services that he needs to provide. We need to be able to have the ability to dynamically optimize those orders without disrupting the execution of a route. And we are able to get that data into the hands of the planner, optimize it, and then send it over to the driver so he can execute. And that data that comes in needs to be able to bring back the feedback of the real-time execution, so that your optimizer can adjust based on what is actually happening in the real life. So, talk about historic traffic patterns. You talk about exceptions on the road, real-time traffic that actually affects the actual work of your drivers. geography or challenges when you're actually visiting a customer. All this data needs to be actually fed back so that you have continuous improvement as you continue to use the optimizer. So that's what makes it unique, and I think we are in a special place when it comes to coping with real-time challenges.
Okay, well, Cyndi, Sergio laid out how it's designed, what it's supposed to do. How does it really work on the ground? What do fleets typically see across their networks, and are there common traits that see the strongest results?
Sure, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is optimization can't just be up and running. You can't just only have it turned on. You truly, truly have to use it every single day. If you do that, your improvements are going to be pretty consistent and pretty significant. The first thing we see within organizations is that they drive fewer miles and start to have less trucks on the road. Routes are tighter, there's less crisscross and backtracking, and savings shows up pretty quickly in fuel, wear and tear on vehicles and maintenance, and quite frankly, even in emissions. The second win is really around safety and productivity. Fleets have the ability to either service more stops in exactly that same amount of time, or they can handle the same exact volume that they're dealing with today with fewer routes. So the big takeaway from this piece is not only does it reduce costs, but it creates a lot of flexibility when volume, spikes during the holidays, or even when labor market is incredibly tight. The third big win is going to be around service reliability. You start to be able to plan more realistic routes. You heard Sergio talk about bringing that execution date back in. When we do that, all your deliveries are going to land right inside those time windows more often. There's going to be fewer missed stops, less scrambling, so dispatch attends to all these exceptions throughout the day. The key takeaway in the first part of this question really is fleets that will see the absolute largest gains are the ones that use the tool well. You don't need a lot of tools or a lot of overly complex tools to have savings. You just need to use them. The very, very best organizations, when you talk about, what's similar across all of them, the very best ones create trust within that plan or that comes directly from the optimizer. You want to make sure there's super clear and clean routes for every driver. And why? You want them to actually follow those routes that were planned. Why? You can have great visibility into ETAs and actual versus plans. And if you have to make changes either before the routes are dispatched or even in the middle of the day, you have faith that the optimizer is really going to make the absolute best choice. The last thing is really that, like Sergio talked to in his points, they're dialed into the data. It's accurate, it's clean, they're collecting that execution data to get accurate service times, better time windows, correct geofences, and they're making sure on the initial intake that information is being entered in accurately. This takes a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and a lot of discipline, but the more you do it, the less time it takes. Of course, we all know garbage in is absolutely garbage out. At the end of the day, the final takeaway on this question is strong results happen when optimization is integrated within the way the fleet operates every single day.
Okay, thanks, Cyndi. Sergio, data is everything these days. Unfortunately, fleets tend to find themselves buried in it. Which data elements, Sergio, have the greatest influence on your plan quality and operational consistency?
Yeah, look, definitely data is super important, and it's the second pillar that I mentioned. One is obviously again the optimizer. The second one that you're addressing is basically this data accuracy. So you can have the best optimizer in the world, but if your data is bad, your routes will be really, really bad. So what we see all the time is customer addresses are slightly off, and geocoding can be inaccurate. Service times can be outdated or guesstimated, and really do not represent what actually the time that you're gonna spend at a customer site. Think about also vehicle capacities. They can be completely guesstimated or not even measured, and that actually affects how you're building your routes. Your driver availability. You may think that you have every driver available during the day, and if one of them or two of them are actually not coming in, and you don't have the data, it definitely breaks completely your plan, and you have to redo your plans. And rushing it just ends up in disastrous plans. And one that we also see a lot is basically time windows. Cyndi mentioned that one as well. Time windows are totally based on hope. I mean, our customers hope that they can actually deliver the times that they're providing to their customers. And that's not the reality. I mean, fixing this is not the most glamorous work, I'm going to say, but it is absolutely necessary. Your route plan is only as good as the data that you have behind it. So garbage in, garbage out. So the idea is actually to have a discipline within your company to really have people monitoring the data and continuous cleanup of your data. Your data should be, like I said, you got to check and monitor the quality of it. You have to measure it. You have to update it regularly. And one of the things that we excel in our solutions is the ability to actually learn from reality. So when you're actually having the feedback loop to your optimizer and learn from the data that the driver has actually collected and given it to you real time, the optimizer should be able to learn and to actually do accurate predictions when it comes to where I need to deliver, at what time I need to deliver, and also the service time that it will take me to deliver in the context of what you're delivering, where you're delivering, and who is actually doing the delivery. So, having mobile technology nowadays allows us to actually learn from real time and actually do the work it used to be very, very tedious, to actually do the work with artificial intelligence and have machine learning do it for you. So, service time predictions, for instance, is one of the things that creates a better SLA compliance, better driver compliance. Your ETAs are more accurate. Your customers are trusting more the delivery notifications that you're actually sending them. Your driver will be trusting more the routes that you're giving to them without stressing them out or without actually slacking them off, right? So the idea is to create route plans that are executable and it creates the efficiencies that the business is actually looking for. This is not an IT personnel job. This is actually the data responsibility is actually not only of the planning team as well as the execution and the driver team, but it's also part of the technology that it has this closed loop so that you can reuse it in optimization. Gathering it is okay. Sending it back, it's okay. But if you constantly use it, I think that's what makes a route planning, execution, and dispatch and execution a top model for executing your last mile fleet, executing routes with your last mile fleet.
Okay, so you convinced your fleets to be disciplined in their data, their weight, their cube, their geocoding, their service times. Again, on the ground, in reality, as you mentioned, how does that affect the predictability and stability of the routing outputs? Basically, what's in it for them if they go to all this trouble to get the right data to you? What's the result?
Well, strong data definitely increases stability and predictability. So you really have more trust on having routes that you deliver to your drivers. The drivers will be trusting more of the system. The same goes obviously to the planners and the dispatchers. They will be feeling more confident about the plans that they're delivering to their drivers, and more. And in addition, you can actually get more if you're actually in a more fixed, semi-dynamic type of routing. You get more repeatable routes, better on time performance with your customers, and for sure you're actually going to be getting less last minute changes because your plan is solid. And like I mentioned, trust. When the system delivers consistent workable plans, planners and drivers stop second guessing your tool. So that is super important. Otherwise, the adoption will be very, very slow. And it also enables automated workflows. So things like self-dispatching or auto-dispatching. You can actually do with this data some trust confident performance benchmarking, and your optimization at a scale that basically becomes the scale becomes possible. So the adoption of the systems, the technology that you're using, a core foundation, the second pillar again, is the data accuracy. And obviously people are important as well. That's the third pillar. We'll touch on that in a minute, but I think that's what data is giving you when you actually clean it up and you make sure that you have technology working for you, making sure that it cleans up your data so that you can use it to create better route plans and execution of your route plans.
All right, Cyndi, as Sergio talked about, it doesn't do any good if the people on the ground don't trust the system. And of course, you've got a lot of experienced drivers, a lot of experienced dispatchers that have been kind of winging it for years, and they think they know that this is the best idea at this point. How do you get them to shift from the old manual, yeah, I've got this, to trusting the workflow that's coming out of the system, Cyndi?
Well, it doesn't matter what piece of technology you're implementing, right? Adoption is truly a real factor in the success. The best optimization in the world, it doesn't matter at all if the people that use it don't trust it, right? Trust is this theme that keeps, permeating through this entire conversation, which, we're asking people to rely on a piece of technology they've probably never seen before or touched, right? So they're naturally going to be suspect of the output. So trust comes through verification, right? If I can verify the output and make sure that it's going to work for me, the people involved in this process, that's really important. So it doesn't matter whether you're a planner, a driver, or part of the warehouse team. I'm going to want to be part of the process to get buy-in and trust but verify. Let me see the output. Let me make sure it's workable. Let me understand why the answer came out if I disagree with it. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a room with a driver saying, this isn't the right way to run this route, but I'll try it for 2 days. And then they come back and say, you know what? I was back 2 hours early. I completely trust the system now. So again, trust but verify. And then finally, let's be honest, nobody likes change except for the people that are making it or driving it, right? So if you involve those people that are going to be most affected by it early in the process, it makes a huge difference. Because again, they're verifying the entire time that you're implementing and testing, right? So when they see their input reflected in the plans that are built, confidence will build incredibly quickly. The other thing is really around workflow clarity. You have to clearly map out how planning happens throughout the day. What drivers experience on the route? What do you want them to do while driving? What happens when they're at a stop? When you understand those workflows, model correctly to get to the desired outcomes that you want, that makes the plan start to feel much more realistic. And again, that's when people will stop fighting it and start relying on it. So again, this whole process is, we want you to trust, but we also understand that you need to verify it in order to have trust in a new way to optimize.
Sergio, if you could follow up a little bit, once the system is in motion, once the drivers are on the road, how do your mobile tools and the real-time visibility, support the execution and strengthen the feedback loop for planners going forward?
Yeah, so like Cyndi was saying, definitely adoption is super important. It's always a huge factor, and the very first thing you gotta have is you gotta have the planners and drivers involvement early. So whatever workflows whatever route plans you're putting together, also if the execution workflow is not well defined with the driver's feedback, it's just going to be very difficult to roll out. So let them actually shape the tool and also shape how it's going to be used. They have to be from the solution design process that you're putting in place for your fleet. Involve your planners and your drivers early, and also show quick wins. I mean, you need to actually give them, all right, what are we doing to actually save you time, Mr. Planner? What are we doing for the driver to save time when you're actually delivering the goods? Do not add work to their normal tasks, because then you're going to have a little bit of how do you call it, a little bit of rejection to the tool. So you have to actually give them the big wins. What is it that actually concerns them the most, so they can start adopting the solution. The feedback on the mobile side is super important. I mean, I've seen companies that they are trying to over document the workflow, and a driver basically spends most of the time actually working on the mobile workflows rather than actually delivering the goods. And that is where we go wrong. What we got to make sure that the driver actually is there to deliver a high level of service to your customers, and the mobile application is an enabler to actually make it happen. It's not a distraction. And that is super important, that when we create workflows to our drivers, that we involve the drivers, we do ride-alongs to make sure that we see where the problems are, where the problems could emerge, or where we actually have opportunities to improve the mobile workflow. And finally, I think it is very important to actually standardize our planning routines and provide ongoing training, because we don't want to just, I think Cyndi mentioned it, just leaving the tool and go ahead and use it. It's not like that. It's actually, you have to actually work out a standard operating procedure with your planners, a discipline with your planners and your dispatchers. And the same goes to your drivers. But you have to involve them from the design so they understand. You have to involve them on the training. They can actually be champions within their own teams, and then continue to improve the process, and don't just let it forget. It is super important that you measure yourself. You look at a baseline, see where we were. Am I making you more efficient? Am I actually saving you effort? Am I actually saving money actually for at the end of the day for the company, right? So we gotta continuously measure that, and measure what's happening with my users, but also what is happening with the benefits that I'm receiving on the application. That is super key when you're implementing and your system is already in place. Mobile workflows come into play so importantly. Without the mobile workflows, just bottom line, if the driver is going to be ignoring the application, you're not going to get the feedback that you're expecting on the optimization, and you just continue not to grow, right? There will not be that continuous improvement.
Okay. Well, Cyndi, so the fleets have realized they've got to be disciplined with their data. Drivers and planners have realized, holy cow, this really works, and it saved me a couple hours. But everybody wants to get better. What's the continuous improvement part of this? What is enabling the next step for private fleets?
Well, I'm going to go all in, Kevin, on a theme you've heard us mention a couple of times throughout the conversation today. It's all about the execution data. This data is super powerful when used correctly. It can improve the customer experience when you think about solving the "where's my order" or Wizmo problem that's out there. But I really feel like the bigger impact is feeding real world accurate delivery data back into planning, so that your routes and your delivery promises and commitments get more accurate over time. We've had execution tools available to us for many years, whether it's a mobile app, a telematics device, a camera device, but there's been a big piece missing. And the big piece missing is really actually understanding what the value of the data that's being generated there. We have not used them to the maximum capacity that's available. To me, that's where AI has really stepped up and is playing a much larger role in helping fleets analyze the data and bring together the data from many disparate execution tools as well, so that it can effectively be put to work. It's replacing within fleets really cumbersome manual processes. No longer are we just collecting data. We're using AI to create super actionable insights that can sometimes even be predictive or prescriptive, right? And then one last thing I'd say about AI relative to execution data is that, it's not just about the term AI. There's a tremendous amount of noise in the market. It's really hard right now to separate what's real from what is just flashy. The fleets that win are truly going to be the ones that focus less on what looks really impressive and what actually drives measurable impact within their organization.
Well, Cyndi, you just read my mind, because to wrap up here, I was thinking, there is all this talk of AI. There's all this noise out there, and I'm a fleet that just thinks we should be able to do things better. I don't even know where to start. So maybe Cyndi, if you could start first and explain how does a fleet tackle this, get involved, get engaged, and then Sergio can wrap things up.
So I think the first thing is that for organizations that are really just beginning to jump in on their digital routing journey, if you will, you have to focus on what's your desired outcome. Why do you want to implement a tool or a new feature? What's it going to get at the end of the day? Is it to be able to grow your business by 20% without hiring another driver or adding another piece of equipment or another route? That's one desired outcome. Is it to reduce your operating costs by 10%? That's another desired outcome. Is it to have driver longevity? You have to really explore what problems are you trying to solve and what outcome or positive impact is it going to make for the business, right? You have to be really clear on what you're trying to accomplish.
All right. Well, Sergio, it's up to you to wrap this up and put it in a bow and put it on my front doorstep. How do we finish?
You got it, Kevin. Look, it's all on what Cyndi was mentioning. I mean, we really do have a clear understanding of where we want to be after we implement this technology. Where do my people actually are going to be, or the teams? Where do I want to have these teams actually at? And the other piece is, do I have the data that actually allows me to get it started, so that I can basically have a baseline or where I am and start measuring results. Look, technology is just an enabler, right? I mean, the data is actually another tool that allows us to get great route plans. But also people and processes are super important. So they got to be involved right from the get-go. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing. We are seeing a lot of motion from being reactive planning. We are actually moving to more, I'm going to call it a predictive routing, where we actually use the tools like artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually get ahead of what we think is going to happen, and get closer and reduce that noise between planning and actuals. That is the whole idea of using technology. And it's just not going to be planning, execution, and dispatch, and then bring that data back. The idea with artificial intelligence brings us also, the ability to incorporate other elements to actually the planning, believe it or not. I mean, we're talking about integrating with other networks, such as, what we call driver engagement. How do we keep those drivers engaged and actually continue to help us provide better input to our optimization plans to actually create better results? So that driver engagement comes from gamifying basically the way they do their work, from driver behavior, from driver safety, from driver ratings from our customers. Because in the end, last mile, like I said, it's basically to our customers when they're actually delivering to their customers. It's actually the face value of their company to say, hey, either I make it with this customer or I break it. And it's super important to have the right tools, the right data, and the right people and processes to make it happen. And I think the technology that we provide is actually there. I think what we're actually doing is engaging more to make sure that the value that each of these three components become the pillars to our end-to-end experience. And and just to close it down, I think the bigger, there is another element in here that is actually the drive, how engaged is the driver with your operations and with your customers. Super important. So I'll leave it with that thought.
All right, excellent. As always, Sergio, Cyndi, I come away from these Descartes chats thinking, wow, this is exciting. And I hope our fleet owner readers, or audience, since this is video, they're not reading, will also be as excited. and we'll take advantage. So thank you all very much, and see you next time.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Pleasure.
Appreciate it, Kevin.